or less. With that said, start your timer. We begin today in Colombia, who is heading for a presidential runoff after leftist candidate Gustavo Cepeda admitted defeat in the first round of voting, unable to secure more than 50% of the needed for an outright win. The runoff will see Cepeda face his main opponent, conservative Alejandro Torres, signaling a continued political divide in the country. The first round results highlight Colombians' concern about economic instability and security. Both candidates are now strategizing to appeal to a broad center, which holds significant influence in deciding the vote. From Reuters, quote, people have spoken clearly and while we achieved much, we must now prepare for the second stage, Cepeda said, end quote. Next, we travel across the Atlantic to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, who is still facing an escalating Ebola outbreak, with confirmed cases rising to 515 as health officials work to contain the spread in the eastern regions. Despite vaccination campaigns and public awareness efforts, cases have spiked in recent weeks, with the response hampered by armed conflict and community distrust that has led to attacks on medical personnel. The latest outbreak of one of the deadliest since the virus first was identified. Cases have spiked, from Reuters, quote, cases have spiked in recent weeks despite the use of the new vaccine and various response measures. Responders have faced significant challenges, including sporadic armed conflict in the region and distrust among communities, end quote. Next, we travel across the Atlantic once again to Mexico, where inflation, their rate is likely to go down beginning in the early part of June, but remained above the central bank's target, according to Reuters' poll of economists. Despite this moderation, inflation pressures persist, complicating the Bank of Mexico's decision to further interest rate cuts. The poll forecasts annual headline inflation at 4.76% and core inflation at 4.23%. From Reuters, quote, although energy prices could continue to be benign in the coming months, there are still price increases in core inflation, especially in services, making it very difficult to converge to the central bank's target in the short term, said Alfredo Coutinho, director for Latin America at Moody's Analytics, end quote. Next, we travel to Taiwan, where global tech executives gathered for the Computex trade show in Taipei, while the Chinese military conducted significant exercises around the island, heightening regional tensions. Despite the proximity of Chinese warships and aircraft, tech leaders, including NVIDIA's Jensen Huang, continued with business activities and meetings. Local sentiment in Taipei appeared largely unfazed by the drills. From Reuters, quote, Chinese warships and fighter jets buzzed the area, but in downtown Taipei, thousands of international business visitors met their Taiwanese counterparts, poring over the latest advances in artificial intelligence and piled into after-parties, end quote. Next, we travel south to Australia, where they, Canada, and Japan have expressed concerns about being excluded from the European Union's upcoming Made in Europe 2026 initiative, which could impact access to critical minerals and supply chains. These bodies worry that the policy will favor European content and the continent and companies on said continent. From Reuters, quote, Japan have warned the bloc risks undermining global efforts on the green transition by favoring homegrown content and companies, end quote. And we end today in Europe, where a proposed Swiss referendum seeks to cap the country's population at 10 million, largely through limits on immigration and raising concerns about many potential economic impacts. Business groups argue that such measures could threaten Switzerland's prosperity and disrupt vital sectors like healthcare and hospitality, which rely heavily on foreign workers. The initiative, supported by the right-wing Swiss People's Party, claims rapid population growth jeopardizes quality of life and the environment. From Reuters, quote, such restrictions would have far-reaching consequences for Swiss employers and the economy as a whole. say business groups, which warn that sectors could be totally crippled, while demographic changes could undermine funding for the country's old age pension system and its broader prosperity. End quote. And if you want to read any of today's articles, you can find all the links in the description below that like and subscribe button. Also, there you can find the podcast on Spotify Podcasts and Podfine. With all that said, there's only one more thing to say: stay safe, don't die.